Discerning truth in a sea of lies. Live from Kalispell, Montana, it's Critical Disclosure Radio with your host, Jim White.
Okay, I'm James White. This is Critical Disclosure Radio. Thanks so much for joining me here today on this 11th day of March 2022. And we're delighted to be coming to you live here from Kalispell, Montana, the last best place on earth, as they say. The weather is starting to break here and turn nice. I think it's going to be in the 50s tomorrow. It's a beautiful place to be here when the weather's nice. When the weather's not nice, it's still beautiful, but not as pleasant. We have a returning guest here on the broadcast today, a personal friend of mine, Kirk MacKenzie, who's the founder of the Constitutional County, theconstitutionalcounty.com. And Kirk is really doing some great work here in Montana, in the Flathead Valley, and now it's spreading out outside the Flathead Valley to other parts of Montana and even the country. I think he has people that follow him all over the country now. And we do appreciate Kirk MacKenzie being here. He originally had the Defend Rural America was his original, maybe not his original, but one of the main sites that he worked with for a long time. Did a lot of great work under that banner. Now he's under the Constitutional County banner. And again, we're delighted to have Kirk MacKenzie here on the broadcast today. Thanks so much, Kirk, for being here.
Oh, Jim, thanks a lot for having me on. And you got to say, I love the show. I've been watching your radio show, and I think this is a wonderful one. And you're trying to get the truth out and get the right people in front of the audience out there. So congratulations.
Well, Kirk, thanks so much for the kind words. But, I stand on the shoulders of people like yourself who have been doing this for, 15, 20, 30 years. I don't know how long you've been doing it, but I've been doing it for a long time. I know you put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in, a lot of great effort you put forth. So I just want to say thank you for all the work that you've done to make guys like me make my show possible. Okay, so let's talk if we can here, Kirk. First of all, I tell you, let's do this. And I try to do this with the guests that I have on the show here that I think have good perspectives, which I think they all do. But specifically, I'd like to know if you give me your 30,000 foot view, if you can, Kirk. Let's start with the macro, and then we'll move into the micro. I don't think it's very difficult to see that the world seems seemingly in turmoil. There's wars or invasions or incursions breaking out, at different parts of the world. We see the economy is really going in the tank. Gas price has been up 50, 60, 70 cents for crying out loud. Who knows, like $2 since Biden's been president. Give me, if you can, Kirk, in this just crazy, out of control, seemingly disorganized world that we're living in. Give me your 30,000 foot view of things right now, Kirk, if you can, and then we'll move into a little closer view. Kirk MacKenzie.
Well, I think, if you're biblical, you could say it's end times. This is a biblical period. This is not a normal period that we're living in right now. It's been 2,000 years since Christianity came out and changed the world for the good with a positive vision and, a peace, a world at peace on the basis of love and mutual respect, having your own personal territory, but you also protect somebody else's personal territory, a set of what I would call positive values. And what we probably didn't know, we have had centuries and centuries of battles, and we kind of were we got the blessing from all the blood, sweat, and toil of all of our ancestors put into this country. And, we were kind of gifted in that way, and we kind of took it for the norm. And we became, used to that and expectations of that. And I think that we're at a point now where we're about to discover that, there is an evil. And it is evil. There's no other way to put it. You can kind of think about, it's the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, when you try and understand the motives of these people, it's evil. And they have been playing the open, Western civilization has been an open society that allows, people to have their free speech and so forth, and equality and those values. And they figured out how to worm around in our system and pretty much take it over. And we seem to be unable or unwilling, whichever, to respond to that in an appropriate fashion. And as a result, the entire, the country, the United States, our greatness has actually been used to bring about the New World Order. And And it's so deceptive, and it's not even a new world. It's the old world order coming back, is what it is. So it's the progressive was Christ, and the regressives are ones that are in control. They've hated the liberty and the freedoms of the people. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And they are quite determined to control the world, and they have been systematically going through our open societies, our open corporations, taking control of the top. And then from the top of these organizations, they have formed essentially a parallel system, and they were all chatting, working together in sync to bring down the world. And as best I can tell, the vision of this is that human beings are just mere animals like cattle. They're gods, and this is their planet, and they want to kind of wipe out Western civilization and wipe out Christianity, which is their greatest threat, erase us from history, and kill us off. I mean, that's, I think, what's going on here. So it's kind of like they think they've reached the fulfillment of that, and they have all this going up to this pyramid of power up to the top, just a few people at the top directing the world. It's pretty amazing, really.
Kirk, I brought up on my show several times, and the thing that I don't think maybe they I don't know if they don't understand, they don't know, they're just ignorant of it, they don't comprehend it. But you realize, Kirk, it's thousands of them against billions of us. Literally, that's no exaggeration. There's thousands of them and billions of us. And you wonder, how in the world are they able to continue to keep the con going for so long and con so many people for so long and do it so well? I mean, when they pulled this mask mandate thing out, Kirk, and they saw 85% of the country mask up in fear, that had to be encouraging to these scoundrels. I mean, whatever they're doing, I think their grip is breaking somewhat now. But whatever they've been doing for decades and decades and decades, and some say longer, has been working, because we're just like a captured population. Sadly, we're just captured. Kirk, any comment on that?
So what they really are really good at, it is a few people, and what they are really good, I mean, these are the Wizards of Oz. And what they have is there's small little characters, little figures, and, completely antisocial. And, but what they've been, because they are few in number, they've devised ways to multiply their effectiveness, basically, right? Force multipliers. And, getting control of the television networks, basically every form of communication is controlled. It's in the hands of a few people. It looks like it's diverse. It looks like you have multiple news channels. Hell, they're all in the Rockefeller building. They're on different floors, in different rooms. They're all singing the same song, and they all come down to 3 or 4 owners. But they have basically figured out how to leverage that. And one of the main tools they're using now is the corporation. So we have these governments that have, mechanisms in them to protect us, right? We have accountability. We vote for them theoretically. And we can have due process, and we have our rights intact and so forth. And what they're doing is they're shipping judgment functions over into corporations, and then saying, okay, by the way, now it has no accountability. It's a corporation. It's private property. You can't enter. Your unalienable rights don't apply. And you can see this clearly in election integrity. It's one of the efforts we're looking at, where they have literally, they are put the entire system in the hands of these foreign corporations like ES&S, and they determine the outcome of the election. They basically stick, what the county does, it sticks paper into the machine, and out comes a vote total. You can't see what's going on. What's going on is a secret election. It's all over there. And they're trying to say, well, you can't do discovery anymore. You can't have accountability, and you can't get the database. You can't verify because, well, that's a company. So they're using this, what I call the corporate bypass, where they're doing it in healthcare. We have it in spades, and they're doing, they say, and if you don't fit in the company, if you're not thinking right, well, we can fire you because that's our policy. So we'll cancel you out. Well, it's a discrimination, so they have figured out these force multipliers. They get to the top of the pyramid, if you will, and they're pretty aggressive about pushing down. And what makes the whole thing work is the ability to print free money and put us in debt for it. And so it's a system of slavery.
Sure,
Federal Reserve is a slave system. But they're putting out, they just what today, I think, approved another 1.6 trillion, was it, or $1.5 trillion that's going out selectively to their program, redistribution, a lot for immigrants, for example, and a lot for green projects and this, that, and the other. And so what they do is they have these people, and they're basically going down through the government ranks and saying, you're going to get fired if you don't follow this. And so you have all these people that are implementing the program. There's no way they could accomplish what they're doing without setting one part of the population against the other, because they need to have a large number of people to subdue an even larger number of people. So you now have that through corporations and through governments that are controlled, and they're just doing their job, right? Where did we hear this? World War II. So, but that's how that's doing it. So, for example, my family came to this country in 1630. We've been through a lot. We've been through here. And so that's almost 400 years we've been here. I'm a Native American. And, we've been through the Depression. And my family has its personal experience with that. So what happens is the bankers create this system and they will bust you. They created the Great Depression. All the miseries and the people that are displaced, the families that have broken up, and the children that starved. These are personal to me. And they did it. And this isn't just something, a theory. They admit they did it. So that's in a public speech. And what they're going to do is they're going to bust us all again because they want to eliminate private property. They want our lands. They hate the fact that we have private property. They want to take it back. They want us all to be tenants paying rent on the land of the earth.
Serfs. They want us to be serfs. They want to bring back the feudal system.
Right. So it's the flow, but it's this ability to come out with money driving this entire system because people don't want to lose their job. And so what'll happen is you'll get, in the Great Depression, the bankers will bust you. The farmers can't, they make the loans. What they'll do is they'll jack up interest rates at the wrong time of the year, so it screws up your crops and things like that. All kinds of, they go to war. They literally go to war and bankrupt them. And then what happens? Well, they send in the sheriff. So all these sheriffs that we think are good constitutional sheriffs are going to follow the law and come out and take away your property for you.
We got a commercial break coming up here, Kirk, in about 15 seconds. TheConstitutionalCounty.com, TheConstitutionalCounty.com, LibertyLinks.io/Kirk Mac, CriticalDisclosure.com, NorthwestLibertyNews.com. I'm your host. We'll be back after these brief messages with Kirk MacKenzie. Today's broadcast is sponsored by Heaven's Harvest Emergency Survival Food. Folks, as you can probably tell from watching the news, there's about to be a real big food shortage in this country. The trucker strike all across the world, especially here in the United States and Canada, is going to stop the food from flowing in here. There's no better time than right now to plant a garden for this spring. Spring is just around the corner, and you can save on shipping over at heavensharvest.com by going to heavensharvest.com and typing in Jim at checkout. Now, all you need to do is buy an heirloom seed vegetable kit or any food bucket and type in Jim at checkout, and you'll receive free shipping. Folks, don't wait. There's not much time left before the food supply is literally going to be shut down. We see this on the news every day. It's time to take your food security in your own hands. Do that by going to heavensharvest.com, picking up an heirloom vegetable seed kit, type in Jim at checkout. heavensharvest.com.
7K Metals is legacy. They help you leave a legacy for your family. Reasonable and affordable. Anyone can own gold and silver. It creates great generational wealth and residual passive income. No minimum or maximum order. 7K Metals has a Better Business Bureau A+ rating. It's about leaving a legacy for your family. It's about helping people. Now is the time to find out more information about protecting yourself. Call Carla at 406-855-2761. That's 406-855-2761. Today is a great time to buy gold and silver as a hedge against poor government decisions and potential economic collapse if history repeats itself. Take control of your financial future. Call Carla at 406-855-2761. 406-855-2761. Call now. 7K Metals and ask about your legacy.
PatriotPrepared.com carries the leading brands of storable food from Legacy and Heaven's Harvest. Patriot Prepared. Our name says it all. We're dedicated to empowering you to be self-reliant and confident in any circumstance. Whether you want to be prepared in the event of an emergency or you're an outdoor sports enthusiast, PatriotPrepared.com has prepackaged meals and kits for your entire family. Legacy, Heaven's Harvest are known for high-quality, great-tasting, GMO-free, nutritious food with no chemical preservatives. Simple to prepare, easy to store, gluten-free and organic high-quality nutrition options with a 25-year shelf life. You can't beat the feeling of being food secure when you need it most. So go to PatriotPrepared.com right now to pick up your supply of high-quality storable food for your family, because it makes good sense to be prepared. That's PatriotPrepared.com.
Okay, folks, if you don't have storable food, it's not too late. We are still shipping at PatriotPrepared.com. Just shipped some orders out yesterday, as a matter of fact. So check it out at PatriotPrepared.com. PatriotPrepared.com. You can get storable food, seeds, water filtration, toilet kits, first aid kits, just a wide variety of things that you can get there on that website. So go check it out, PatriotPrepared.com. And all purchases help support this broadcast. Okay, we have Kirk MacKenzie here with us today from the Constitutional County. Kirk's returning guest. We're always glad to have Kirk on the show. I produce a show for Kirk on Tuesday. We're on a bit of a hiatus right now. We're going to pick it back up again probably here, I'm sure, in the next 3 weeks. And we're going to encourage you to check that out on Tuesday evenings on all these same networks, pretty much. Well, Kirk has his own networks. If you go to Rumble or if you go to, let's see, Brighteon, and I don't know if there's others. We're working on others. But anyway, just type in The Constitutional County, and you can find all of the great videos that Kirk's done, all the great shows that Kirk's done. A lot of great information out there, folks. The information's out there. All you have to do is just have to capture it. And Kirk's done a great job of doing that. And just use the resources and don't rebuild the wheel. Kirk's already done a lot of it for you over at constitutionalcounty.com. Kirk, thanks for hanging on for the break. Tell us what people can find if they go over to theconstitutionalcounty.com. What type of materials are there? Are there groups that are forming? I think there are groups that are forming. At least you're in contact with people at different states as well. Is there a way? Is there sort of a way to organize on there? Is it instructional?
Sure.
Is it informative?
Sure,
Tell us about it.
Yeah, there is. Let me finish this one thought, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You essentially have a situation where the sheriffs are following the law, and they come take your home. Now, why is that? What law? Well, bankruptcy laws. So let's think about this for a second. A mortgage is a private contract. It's a contract between the bank and an individual, right?
Yes.
Why the hell does the public spend money to enforce a private contract? Because of the bankruptcy laws. So laws are being put into the books that really have no function for us particularly. What they do is they're there on behalf of the bankers.
Oh, yeah.
People stuff the law with things that are basically, then they can use law enforcement to enforce their designs. And so what's happening is that then you look at the law and you say, well, what is the role of the sheriff? Nowhere does it say their job is to protect our lives, our rights, and our property. What? That's what government is. Why do we tolerate government if it isn't that? It doesn't have anywhere in there the description that that's what their job is.
To what now? Protect our lives, the law, and our property?
Our lives, our rights, and our property. Well, that's why we pay taxes. I mean, we want to build roads and schools, but bottom line, we want government to protect us. That's not what these governments are chartered to do. They have already gone in there and wormed their way through the quote constitutions and the law books, so that when you enforce the law, you're essentially moving in the direction of this old world order. So it's an interesting situation that they've been able, getting back to your main point, Jim, You're talking about a handful of people who've been masters at deception. So how do you build this pyramid? Well, the answer is division, discrimination, destruction, defamation, right? And defamation, boy, oh, they got them. They basically are controlling how you think and what you think by basically shooting these zingers at you that are meant to psychologically create barriers, taboos, to control how you think and what you can say. And they are doing those so that they can go ahead and build a path in the direction they want to go and prevent you from falling back and rethinking those things. So the answer, I think, going forward here is my conclusion is that government at every level is corrupt. I mean, it is corrupt. And, the only reason they've gotten so far as they have is the trusting nature of the public and the fact that the first thing that with all this money, what have they done? Well, they're buying segments of society off. They're buying off state governments. 50% of the government now in Montana comes from the federal government.
That's right. 50% of the money. You're right. You're right.
It's an extension of the federal government. The county, 30 to 40%. So what's happening is a lot of things have been going on where we've been enjoying the 50s and the 60s and our, the good times. And we were trusting. We were trusting because Christianity allowed us to create a society that compared to every other society on the planet over the entire history of the world, it was able to trust each other because we had an inherent goodness. We wanted to make sure that we, didn't offend other people and we didn't, screw them up for the most part and so forth, right? So they've been able to get a long way. Well, now the revelations are coming. And if we believe the Bible, then the truth shall set you free. Well, I can tell you in my case, it's cost me 2 kidneys because to confront the reality of the nature of these people is really hard for a Christian to do because it's just not in our understanding of what mankind is. And yet you have to understand that if you believe in a God, then you have to believe in the devil. And I believe it's that fundamental. We're down to the basic values. Christianity, what makes Christianity unique in the world? And the answer is that compared to every other religion, no other religion, I've studied them all, has a couple of concepts. One, free will. Free will. And number 2, the idea of equality. There is no chosen people. The only way you become blessed is through, faith. No other way. Not through race, not through sex, not through how rich you are. We're all equal.
Not by your works.
God's eyes, right?
Not by your works.
You need to be a good person. Faith has 3 elements to it, my belief. One is you have to believe. Number 2 is you have to practice. And number 3, you got to preach. In other words, you've got to spread the word. And that's a whole little presentation I have on doing that. But so I think that we're at a time that is the time to test men's souls. And I believe that we're in a spiritual battle that ends up determining whether humans will be humans or we're going to be cattle. It's really that clear. And I unfortunately believe that the churches are giving you wrong doctrine because what they're basically telling us all to do is, well, just sit back. This is supposed to happen. Let it happen and so forth. I don't believe you get to heaven by just sitting back.
Nope.
I think you get to heaven by following the footsteps of Christ. And Christ was an activist. He wasn't a pacifist. He was out there. Now, he didn't have any guns. He didn't have any money. He didn't have any weapons. He didn't have an army. He didn't even have a home. He didn't even have a family. But he went out there and spread the word. And what's that word? We're all loved. We're all equal. And be good to each other. It's
Love
a pretty
thy neighbor.
simple message.
Love thy
but
neighbor.
It was empowering. And you get the fruits of your own labor. Somebody else doesn't get to steal it from you, like the government with taxes. It's yours. You earned it. It's yours. Those fundamental concepts, it turns out, when you compare societies, why did Western civilization succeed wildly above any other civilization? Was it intelligence? Was it race? Was it these things, northern, hemisphere versus southern hemisphere, what? And then my conclusion on this is because of our Christian faith. Because those simple principles put in motion motivation. Western civilization is built on workers. We work. We enjoy work. We build. We invent. We take risks. We go out into the pioneers and we open it up. They may complain about the fact that we've taken over lands, but what do we leave behind? We took dirt and turned it into prosperity. Turned it into the Garden of Eden everywhere we went, right? And so it has led, whereas other societies were stifled under totalitarianism and this idea that there's a class and we're that lower class and they're an upper class, there's no motivation. And when you open up the motivation, then look at all the things that happen. Unbelievable things. Who would have ever imagined the things that we have learned from all the way from space all down to the subatomic atom and computers, and we could take a piece of dirt, a piece of silicon, and make it think. I mean, it's just incredible what we have accomplished. And I believe it's Christian faith. And I'm not alone. The Chinese analyzed the same question. They came back and said, well, what is it that, what was unique about Western civilization? They said Christianity, and why? Because we could trust one another. And trust was the grease for commerce. Now you think about that. Every day you get in the car, you trust that car will get you there. You trust when you buy gas, it's not cheap gas. You trust when you go to the restaurant, you're not eating a rat. Because we have built up the trust in our culture, and we've reinforced that through, our programs that we put in place. And what they're doing is they're attacking the basis, the foundation of our culture. They're basically attacking that trust. And they're trying to divide us 50-50. You got to divide 50-50, because if you can divide 50-50, men, women, black, white, an immigrant, black versus non-white, white, whatever, gay, non-gay, masked, non-masked, 50-50. Then when people vote, they cancel each other out. A 50-50 vote is exactly the same as a 0-0 vote. And then the 5% swings the vote.
And you always notice in these elections, right? You always notice in these elections that someone wins by 2 points one way or 2 points another way, and they continue to propagate that narrative because for the most part, most of the election results I see are like 52-48, 53-47. They're all around that 50-50 mark. We got to break in about 2 minutes, Kirk.
And that's by design. The real election, when you open it up, we got a question onto a ballot up in Northern California, Siskiyou County. They took one and put it up there on dams. There was a big issue on dams, and they finally got it put on the ballot and let the people speak and vote. Dams in or dams out. It was like 75-25. I mean, you don't get 52-48 every year in and out. That is a maneuvered number, a manufactured number, in order so that the minority vote, they can swing it either way they want to do that. Another force multiplier. So to get back to your original question, where are we in the scope of history? We're at a point of judgment. And I think we're at a point of judgment not only as humanity, but as children of God. The Bible is very clear. Are we sons of God or are we not? Are we servants? That's the decision to be made here. Because if we want to be sons of God, then we have to have faith and we have to fight back. And we have to be tested. It's not what you do when you go to the church on a weekly basis that judges you. It's what you do between sermons during the week. And I don't see enough of that. People have got to be prepared to stand up and fight back. And that's where we are, I think, in this point in time, because nobody else is coming.
It's like how people act when no one's around, right? Are you the same person when no one's around as you are when you're around, folks? Kirk, we are just coming to a break here. We got a network break coming up. Again, folks, theconstitutionalcounty.com, theconstitutionalcounty.com, or you can go to libertylinks.io /Kirk Mac. You can find out more about what I've got going on over at criticaldisclosure.com, northwesternitynews.com, or libertylinks.io/Jim's Links. We'll be back after these brief messages here on Critical Disclosure Radio. Okay, folks, welcome back from the break. I'm your host, James White. This is Critical Disclosure Radio. Thanks so much for hanging on with us. We broadcast here each weekday, 10 to 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time, 5 days a week on a variety of different networks, including Brighteon Radio, which hosts the show. We're delighted to be on Brighteon Radio. Rumble, Podbean, Foxhole, Facebook, and I think there's Twitch. So you can check us out on any of those networks. And we do appreciate your support. And I've been putting the shows up on BitChute as well when I have time to do so. The problem with BitChute is you have to reduce the file so much. It's kind of makes it a little bit prohibitive. But I'm going to bear down and keep doing that consistently as I have time. And we do appreciate you supporting us here on the broadcast. libertylinks.io/Jim's Links. There's a button at the top that says support the show if you want to support us that way. We are here with Kirk MacKenzie, the founder of the Constitutional County. Been in the fight for many, many years. Been on this broadcast and others before plenty of times. Gee whiz, Kirk, I think that I started first doing videos 7 or 8 years ago. I think the very first video I did was, the real big video I did was you, I believe you were at right down at the end of the road here at the White Birch, I think it was called back then, and you were doing a conference down there. That had to be 6 or 7 years ago, Kirk, maybe more. Let's see, probably 7 years.
Almost 10 more.
Has it been that long? Wow, yeah. Amazing how fast time flies. Boy, I tell you one, Kirk, if you could have looked into, if you would have looked into a crystal ball 10 years ago and saw 2022 Would you even have thought for 1 second that it have got as out of hand as it is now, where it looks like literally, and again, I don't want to get involved in hyperbole here, folks, but I don't think it's hyperbole. We're in a situation where our own government is run by, I think, evil Luciferians who are trying to kill the population. Kirk, I know that sounds a little bit radical, but you care to comment on that? Do you agree or disagree?
I think there's almost no other way to describe it, to be honest with you, Jim. But I want to go back, if I could, build up a little bit about the constitutional county. Is that okay?
Yeah, sure, of course.
So the thinking behind this. So I watched it now for decades. I've been involved for 40 years. I've been watching these efforts come and go, and they pop up and then they fail, and there's nothing left over, and so forth. And we keep losing. And I've come to the conclusion that partly why we keep losing, yeah, they're pretty aggressive on the other side, but we continue to fight the war the same way as if we're going to win it. And we think, well, if we just do more of the same, we're going to somehow get better results, and we just keep going downhill. We're not doing it right, folks. I put out a video called How to Take Our Country Back. It's my message to the grassroots party of the Tea Party days, saying you're screwing up. You're screwing up. And partly because you're always on the defense. Why? Because we chase the news. We let them set the narrative. We let them set them in terms of the debate, and the words are being bastardized. And we're using their bastardized definitions of the words. And we're sitting there just chasing around our tails, and we're disunited. We don't unify. We got a lot of independent efforts, and everybody's pretty independently minded. That independence that served us so well for centuries isn't doing so good in this world. It's basically, communities and assemblies that are going to make a difference going forward. You have to come together and become united. And, the other thing that we need to have is, well, what do you want? And say, well, I just want to stop them. Well, that's not enough. You need to know, well, where do you want to go? The movement doesn't say that. We don't talk about that. We're trying to restore what we had, but where do you want to go? How do you get there? So what the Constitutional County does is says, wait a minute. First step, we know there's a problem. Let's get educated on that. And you better understand it well in order to make a real difference and be strategic about it. But the first thing I got to know is, where do you want to go? I got to know I'm going to go to Salt Lake. That's where I want to go. I want to end up in Salt Lake City. Now I have a focus. I'm not on the defense anymore. I know exactly where I want to go. And every single day, I ignore all that news and I head to Salt Lake City. Now, I may decide that I think the best way to get down there is on the interstate, but then I discover, well, this interstate's blocked. Well, let's try this highway. Well, let's try this one. And that's exactly my feeling here, is you need to go do that. So maybe it's going to be rural assemblies. Maybe it's going to be natural citizenship. Maybe it's going to be, we can pursue this on the quote de facto side. Different people are trying different experiments. That's fine. They're all complementary, in my opinion, because what will happen is we will converge very rapidly on what works. So the path to get there, that's part of the tactics, if you will. But you have to have a vision. And once you have that vision, you're no longer on the defense, you're on the offense. And secondarily, if you get strategic about it, you know how to go ahead and rebuild your foundation, because they're attacking our foundation every single day. Your identity, your culture, your money, your homes, your ownership. I mean, they're
our
bang,
children.
Bang, 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 bang. So you can't even build. In the meantime, over there, they built, another tower, 100 floors tall. And it's founded on money. And they have control, the use of the money for control the strategic things like information flow, for example, or, Hollywood or government. And they have that foundation. And when they go into a battle, they're like a 600, ship Navy out there, and we're jumping in our pontoon boats. We have to build our foundation at the same time we attack theirs. Well, secondarily, we got to have focus. We don't have focus. People just jumping from tweet to tweet, and they have lost the ability to discriminate about what's really important and get themselves behind. And here's what's happened. So let's say we're fighting critical race theory, or we're fighting election integrity and fraud, we're fighting the monetary system, or we're fighting the healthcare questions. Okay, those are good issues. There are dozens of them. We seem to be trying to take 10 people to solve 50 of those problems simultaneously. That ain't gonna work. But there's a problem. Well, why haven't any of them been solved? None of them have been solved, right? Because they're all symptoms of a deeper problem that we don't address. And the deeper problem is underneath that is a government that isn't working for us. It's a systematic problem. It's systemic problem. And we go ahead and try and change people in office, and guess what? They make all these promises, they go in and they don't do them. Or they can't get them done. They try and they can't. The system is screwed up.
Well, Kirk, one of the things I think
there's an underlying founding problem that has to be addressed. So let me just finish this one thought.
Okay, go ahead.
So when we take, I've learned you can't get people's attention unless you address the hot button of the moment. But you take one of the most strategic ones, like election integrity, and as you pursue it, yes, you go out there and you figure out how the machines are screwing up, and how you go ahead and seeing what they're doing with the boxes and everything else, right? All the organic methods. But underneath that, you're looking at the government processes that lead to that. And you attack the government processes that are doing it with the eye and mind of reforming those and fixing it. And the blueprint is a vision of what you want to fix and how you fix it. And then when we address election integrity, if you read the documents that we're preparing and will be released in the next 2 weeks, is that you're underlying underneath here, we're going to expose that too. And guess what? That piece of exposure is common to all of our problems. It doesn't matter whether you're mostly concerned about masks and jabs for your kids, or you're concerned about the abortions, or you're concerned about, public lands. I mean, all these interests that we're concerned about is we all have a common interest in solving one problem. Government has to work for us again. And that's the whole premise behind the constitutional county, and that we do that on a voluntary basis with individuals and organizations that understand that and understand we have to come together.
Well, Kirk, you well said. You mentioned earlier about one of the reasons that we can't seem to defeat this enemy. And what I'm finding here, especially locally, and it's very discouraging, is good conservative people, or I consider many of them patriots. They will agree on 97% of everything, but that 3% that they disagree on completely divides them and keeps them group separated, and keeps I wouldn't say turmoil is probably not the right word, but discontent amongst the patriots as a whole, because and one of the problems also is, of course, the people on the right the men on the right are generally alpha males. The ones on the left are generally not. And when you have a whole group of alpha males trying to come together to make a decision, alpha males don't really work well together. So we have a couple of inherent issues that are, I think, against us as conservatives. But we have to certainly get beyond all that, because we have to find a way to come together towards the common goal, and that's defeating this tyranny and this communist takeover that they're trying to take over here, Kirk. How can we pull people together? Is the constitutional county a good solution for that? Because there's a lot of discontent right now amongst patriot groups. I'm finding.
So they're disconnected. They're a bunch of if you stand back and look at them, it's in this presentation, how to take a country back. You got all these people doing all these different things. You go back to your satellite, it's zero. It's just white noise. And you have to realize that what we need to do is, we have 1 + 1 = 0. What we need to have is 1 + 1 = 10. How do you do that? Well, the answer is, if you have 10 individualists that decide that you come out with an idea, and they break it up, and all of a sudden you have 10 flavors of it, or even 30 flavors of it, you're not going to get anywhere, right? But if instead you say, no, we agree on that, how can we build towards that? Then the answer is each of you contributes something unique. And you build on each other. You know, we have a movement that likes to steal other people's ideas and we publish them as if they were their own inventions. And what you do instead is you say, no, this is pretty damn good. You know, what Jim's doing here on this radio is pretty damn good. You know, if it's Sheriff Mack you like, if it's me you like, if you pick the ones that you like and then support them. And we'll be more effective if you put support into the people that are leading the cause than sitting there and trying to go different directions. And so if you have a team that's working, and let's suppose you have 10 people working together, and each one contributes a little, but you don't duplicate, right? So you sit down and say, hey, this is the objective. Okay, who's good at press releases? Who's good at, research? Who's good at writing? You break it up. Who's good at organizing meetings, right? You break it up. Then what happens is every one contribution has the benefit of the 10. Got it? The 10 people create 10, and everybody benefits because they only contribute 1. They got 9 for free if they work together. And that's the key. We need to do that across, organizations and so forth. So the Constitution County is unique. We're not an organization. We don't even try to be an organization. Instead, what we're trying to be is a vision and objectives and strategies and tactics of how to get to where we want to get. And we develop all these materials for people. They're there. And all you have to do is use them. They're free. They've always been free. I've never charged for anything. The website, nothing. So they're there. And if people would basically grab onto the blueprint, which is that 9-page PDF document that says, hey, where is it we're trying to go? What does a constitutional county actually look like? What does the sheriff do? What do we need to do to the courts? What do we need to do with the commissioners? What do we need to change and how? Then we'll come up with how we get there. And so I think that I suggest people at least consider the constitutional county, because that's exactly what we're trying to do, is to not reinvent another organization, but to unify, to maximize the effectiveness of the organizations that are out there.
Kirk, if we could just get like one group where everybody would agree that, we need to move together in unison, because you're right. I think a lot of our efforts are being, multiplied, or not multiplied, but what's the word I'm looking for? Reproduced, duplicated, right? We have to have, and that's what it's like herding chickens. That's the hard thing, is getting everybody together on the same page. While we're trying to pull people together, Kirk, the establishment is working double time trying to keep us apart. It's almost like a spy versus spy. Remember the old Spy versus Spy? Was it the Mad magazine, where they kind of would go back and forth at each other? It seems that way. As much as we're trying to pull people together, they're trying to divide us. And they did a masterful job with this whole mask thing. I mean, you had people punching people and beating them down, and getting in brawls and everything. And I think there was even a shooting or two over masks and not wearing masks. I mean, we got to get control, Kirk, I believe, in one of the parts of the program. We got to get the media. We got to get the media back. We have to get the media back.
We need leadership. We don't need people. A lot of these organizations are formed so people can feed their egos. I'm just going to be blunt. And, they want control. And they get a little piece of information they want to hang on to as their little private piece, because that's what gives them their power. That's not leadership. Leadership is sitting back and listening to people, respecting one another, and trying to understand where they're coming from, and understand they've come to that point for a lot of reasons. And the good reasons, if you're working with good people, they may have different answers, but they want to go where you want to go. They want the same vision. They may have come up with a different idea. Keep talking to each other. I call this communicate, coordinate, cooperate, not control. And leaders have to be selfless, and they have to be not worried about what credit they get. What they have to be thinking about is, how do I get the result? How do we get the result? Let's do what it takes to get the result. And not, let's figure out what I get out of it. Give up on that. There is no one Jesus Christ here. There is no one, Joan of Arc here. We're all going to contribute our part. And leaders will understand that. Leaders will come together. And if the leaders come together and organize and agree to help each other, not control each other, but help each other, then the movement will come together. And that's one of the things I'm trying to do.
Practically speaking, Kirk, what can people do on the ground? I mean, do you suggest that people start meeting with their sheriff, like setting appointments to meeting with their sheriff, setting appointments and meeting with their commissioners, setting appointment and meeting with their mayors or their city council, or at least attending those meetings? Do you find that, is there some effectiveness? You talk about a group. Is there some benefit to meeting one-on-one and speaking to them? Because sometimes when you have the group behind you, it look like you're teaming up on them and bullying them. Is there something to meeting them one-on-one personally at their office and just talking to them, person to person? Have you noticed there's been success with that?
So first, they got to know what project. They have to decide what it is you're going to fight, what battle is important. And I'd recommend there's two that I'm in the middle of. Three, actually. Okay. One is the system. We cannot move forward until we resolve the 2020 general election. There is no path forward without that. There has to be accountability. They got away with Pearl Harbor. That only emboldened them to do a 9/11, which they got away with. And if we allow them to get away with this, 2022 election, forget it. Not even going to be there. So I would suggest that people get on board that project, figure out what we're doing or others are doing, and get in there and support. I'm also involved in the healthcare issue where they're now using this corporate bypass through hospitals. The hospitals are telling you, hey, if you don't get the jab, we won't give you a transplant. So I'm a kidney transplant patient. I've been waiting for 3.5 years. And guess what? 2 hospitals that I was listed at have now taken me off the list because I won't get the jab. Whoa, they're denying us health care. And if you think that's going to be unique to transplant patients, you're kidding. They're going to use this lever everywhere.
Just saw an announcement today, Kirk. Hold on for a second. Just saw today where Germany now is denying health care to people from Russia and Belarus. They're no longer supplying health care.
It's going to,
what's
you're
next?
Going to call up emergency one day and they're not going to come. So I would say, first off, Jim, get on board one of these, or if you have another one, but get on board one that's strategic, and then get all the way behind it. And then, yes, meet with your sheriff. I think it's absolutely important to sit down and talk to your sheriff. And you talk with, don't talk at. We have a lot of people that want to talk at. You walk in and you want to tell them things. Listen first. Find out who they are. Do they have kids? Why are they in the job? What do they want to do? What's their thinking about the country? Share with them. And just get an understanding of where they're at and if they are constitutionally oriented or not. And if so, then kind of work with them towards what you understand that to be and what you think the solutions are. But don't dictate, don't tell, don't talk down. It won't work. But I agree that a positive relationship with your sheriff, your commissioners, where they're good ones, with your representatives, are all good people to get and open up a conversation with. And don't be afraid. If you're finding the good ones, hey, they want support, they want to talk to you, they want your support, and they want help where they can.
That's right, folks. And if you want your sheriff to act like a constitutional sheriff or to go against, sort of the grain, because if he goes with the grain, it's tyranny for you. If you want your sheriff to go against the grain and stand up for the people and their Bill of Rights, then you have to support them. You have to let them know that you're behind them. Because remember, they're just men and women just like us. I mean, they don't want to be ostracized or outcast or voted out of office because they've done something that goes against the majority of the population. They need your encouragement. I mean, they need it. I mean, if you want them to be bold, they have to understand that there's people that are going to stand behind them if they decide to become bold. Otherwise, they're not going to. I mean, who wants to be that person, right? Kirk, we only got about 2 minutes left here. Go ahead and follow up on that comment I just made, and go ahead and I'll give you time to go ahead and just close out and say anything you want to say before we got to close out the broadcast here. Kirk MacKenzie.
So I guess the last thing I'd say is that the 2 projects that we're in here really intensely is the election integrity And like I say, we're looking to come out with some more information within the next 2 weeks on that, because there's got to be accountability here. It is a stinking system. It's been completely taken over. It's not an election system. And unless we expose that, there really, it's like, you now understand why 95% of the people in a communist country vote for the party, because there's no really choice.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they won with 99% of the vote. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what 2022 is going to look like without this accountability. So I'm very much in that one. And I think the idea of denying you life, treating you as animals, as cattle, and saying, well, Ezekiel Manuel, who invented the Obamacare, is actually Ezekiel Manuel. Basically, I read his research papers. He basically concluded, well, 75 is a good age to die. That's old enough. So they're setting up a system to withdraw your medical care to age 75.
Sure.
So we have to get on board that one, in my opinion. So there's a couple that stand out as being meeting the criteria of going after reforming government, exposing the government, and making meaningful strategic changes that we need to build a platform of our own.
Folks, we're just out of time here. You can find out more about Kirk and what he's got going on over at theconstitutionalcounty.com, theconstitutionalcounty.com, libertylinks.io/Kirk's links. And just a quick program note, starting Monday on the Northwest Liberty News broadcast, I'll be interviewing the local Montana Flathead legislators to start. And moving on from there, I think Braxton Mitchell and John Fuller is on next week, and I'm hoping to fill that up this weekend. Check it out, criticaldisclosure.com, northwestlibertynews.com. For my guest, I should say, Kirk MacKenzie from the Constitutional County, this is James White saying bye now.
Bye.